I'm doing that internet thing where you act like you didn't know that the camera was on. I'm Adam Pritchard, Assistant Curator of Paleontology at the Virginia Museum of Natural History, and I'm back with another tale of ancient life. As the Assistant Curator of Paleontology at the Virginia Museum of Natural History, I am responsible for both building and curating the fossil collections housed here at the VMNH, and we have tens of thousands of specimens housed here from across the past 3 billion years of Earth's history. It's crazy. From plants to invertebrates to vertebrate animals, we've got it all. And each week, I field lots of requests from scientific researchers and members of the public about the specimens we have here at the museum. The types of specimens, the catalog numbers, measurements, questions about anatomy, all kinds of questions. A few weeks ago, I got a request for some information on a Tanytrachelos specimen in our collections from a noted paleontologist. And it required me to dive into collections and learn a bit more about this great ancient reptile species. The request I received came from Dr. Paul Olson, one of the world's leading experts on the early Mesozoic era, the age of reptiles, on the eastern coast of the North American continent. Dr. Olson is also notable to me as the original describer and namer of Tanytrachelos back in 1979. And he's working on a new paper right now that's going to feature some images of VMNH Tanytrachelos specimens. That's exciting. He had some cool photos of Tanytrachelos that he wants to publish, but he wasn't sure which specimens they actually corresponded to. And all of our specimens have number identifiers, catalog numbers, that allow scientists to come back and study the same one over and over again, allowing the repeatability that makes science possible. So, I had photos, but no numbers. So my first step was to go into the collections software, our database software that correlates all the information about each individual cataloged specimen, and look at the specimens that have photographs associated with the records. Fortunately, a lot of our specimens are associated with photo records, so just by looking at the database, we can get a basic idea of what a specimen looked like. Doing that, I was able to find records for one specimen, a beautiful, nearly complete skeleton of Tanytrachelos that is VMNH 120014. This is actually a really nice cast of VMNH 120014, and it allows you to see some of the key features that make a Tanytrachelos. Got the tiny little head with sharp nose and tiny jaws, a relatively long, slender neck that arcs back, the chest region, relatively short, thin limb bones on the arm, a long abdominal trunk region. There are the legs sort of folded back, sprawled out, much like a lizard, and then a long, slender tail that extends back from it. And almost all Tanytrachelos are about the same size. This one is pretty normal in size, maybe a little on the large side. Sort of squirrel-sized animals. I said in my original video that Tanytrachelos could probably swim around in your bathroom sink or your toilet, if you were mean like that. But Dr. Olson had sent me an information request for 2 Tanytrachelos specimens, and I hadn't found the second one. And that one was special. The image showed a skeleton surrounded by almost a ghostly white halo of material on the rock. And that kind of halo, at least in the Solite Quarry, is associated with the preservations of soft tissues, things like skin or the organs. And for Tanytrachelos, that's rare. I've never seen anything like that. So I had to find this specimen, not only for Dr. Olson, but for my sanity as well. And I'm sure I've preserved my sanity. And so with that, it was time to open some cabinets. Fragmentary back end right there. Much Image of the skeleton there. Backbones and ribs. A couple of really good ones here. So I searched and searched and searched through all those drawers and more, and I couldn't find the halo Tanytrachelos. It was driving me crazy. So I started looking in the scientific literature to see if there were any hints there. And I discovered in a dissertation by paleontologist Amy Smith at Virginia Tech a photo of the halo Tanytrachelos, and it had the specimen number associated with it. And that allowed me to go into the catalog again, find the exact location, and find the specimen. And I had a hard time finding it because I was looking for that squirrel-sized Tanytrachelos. I was convinced that that's what I was going to see, that halo surrounding. But it wasn't. VMNH 120045 is one of the smallest Tanytrachelos of them all, just a few inches long. Here you can see VMNH 120045, all the parts of the anatomy of the animal, and for scale comparison, a penny. Tiny. And so, I went from not knowing anything about this Tanytrachelos specimen to having an incredible window into the early life of this species. I made an assumption that the specimens of Tanytrachelos preserved at the Solite Quarry were all of roughly similar size. That's an incorrect assumption, as the tiny Tanny clearly shows. There is a wide range of sizes preserved in the quarry, and that means we could actually learn a lot from a specimen like that about the proportions of Tanytrachelos as they grow up. Did they change? Did they stay the same? And just all kinds of things about the soft tissues of the animals through chemical analysis. It's really exciting to see the possibilities provided by a single specimen, in this case VMNH 120045. In science, it's always critical to question the assumptions you have and the truths that you hold about how the world works. I had an assumption about how Tanytrachelos specimens looked and were preserved in the Solite Quarry. Now I'm learned the truth is much broader and bigger than I thought it was. Always question what you think you know. I'm Adam Pritchard, and I hope you've enjoyed this tiny window into the adventures of a curator of paleontology. And I'll be back with more tales of ancient life.